Welcome everyone to our first Communication Innovator Forum. On behalf of the Student Planning Committee and everyone associated with the Purdue Institute for Civic Communication, we are so excited you are all here tonight. For students like me, the PICC is a bridge to real-world leaders. Through these forums, as well as classes and leadership roles, we gain experience that will prepare us for life after Purdue. There's more information about some exciting PICC classes on the back of your program. The founder and executive director of the PICC is Ambassador Carolyn Curiel. For 4 years, she has been bringing leaders in public life and media to spend time with Purdue students and the community. Her biography is in the program as well. In brief, her real-world experience as a journalist, senior White House aide, and U.S. ambassador has provided connections that make these forums possible. Her students are just so grateful she returned to her alma mater to share her experiences and contacts with us. So it is with honor and pleasure that I pass the mic to Ambassador Curiel.
Thanks and welcome, everyone. Thank you, Evie. Evie Epifano is one of our great students whom we count as participants in the PICC. You're going to meet several of these young people tonight, and they receive a mention in our program. The Institute is student-driven, and I am fortunate to have these talented young people at the wheel. So tonight is pretty special for us. The PICC mission is to help our students to communicate the often complex knowledge that they gain in Purdue classrooms and through Purdue research. Be they in public relations or in nuclear engineering, an individual needs to critically think and to be able to share what they know so that non-experts understand. Great policy ideas and solutions can break through if they are accessible to decision makers and voters. And that is what makes Joey Marburger, a Purdue alumnus and director of digital products and design at the Washington Post, a natural choice for our first Communication Innovators lecture. His designs draw people to vital information. We will introduce Joey in just a moment, along with the students who will interview him, but first, we want to turn our attention to interaction with our audience, an instant poll. For those of you who have come to our forums before, you know that we want you to take out now your cell phone and get ready to vote. Our pollsters are Gustavo Lopez and Lucas Wheeler. They could come out now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Curiel. Hello, everyone. My name is Gustavo Lopez, and I'm a senior in political science and economics from Hammond, Indiana. This is my second PICC event, and I'm really thrilled to see your responses for this poll.
Thanks, Gustavo. I'm Lucas Wheeler from Crown Point, Indiana. Seems like we're representing the region pretty well tonight on stage. I'm a senior in political science, and I'm graduating this May, and we created this poll to gauge your views and how you consume your news.
If you've been to a PICC event, you know that we love technology, and we love to use our phones. So now, if you take out your phone, we're going to input a code so that we can start voting. You're going to input a code that you'll see on the screen, and your responses will be displayed instantly for all of us to see.
But please remember, this poll is completely anonymous, and we're only going to see the number of votes for each answer. Gustavo's going to run a test question.
All right, so if you take out your cell phones, you're going to text to the number 22333. Again, that's 22333, the following digits. You're going to text 741628 to 22333. Do that, join our session, then you can simply text in your responses for each question. All right, and again, that's 22333 and text 741628 to join our session. Once you join our session, you simply must text, for example, if you're going to answer computer science technology, you would text 1 to 22333, and your response would be displayed immediately. All right. So here's our first dry run question. What is your background? Text 1 to 22333 for computer science and technology. Text 2 for other STEM disciplines. Text 3 for liberal arts and humanities. Text 4 for business. 5 for other. and 6 for non. And please input your responses now. You have 10 seconds.
All right, looks like we have plenty of liberal arts majors here tonight. So for our second question, we're going to ask you, how often do you check news information sources of any kind? So for constantly, several times a day, text 7 to 22333. For once or twice a day, text 8. For fewer than 5 times a week, text 9. For almost never, text A. And for never, text B. You're going to have 40 seconds this time.
Ooh, a tie. So it looks like everyone here is a news junkie. Great. All right, next question. Picture yourself checking the news. Are you usually C, sitting with printed newspaper in hand, D, at an online information site, E, on tablet or handheld device, D, at line, or F, at the line at Starbucks or another gathering spot getting news from other people, or lastly G for none of the above?
All right, a lot of handheld devices. Everybody's like we're using our phones for. Would you be more likely to read a national printed newspaper like the Washington Post or New York Times if it were provided free of charge at Purdue? Text H for yes, I for no, and J for I don't care for printed media.
All right, next question. What is the best about non-printed news? No paper to recycle. I can search for exactly what interests me. Usually it's free of charge. I can easily share what I read. All of the above or none of the above.
All right, when you use online news sources, you favor traditional news operations like the Washington Post, news aggregators like Yahoo or Google News, blogs, social media like Facebook and Twitter, or none of the above.
So it looks like most of us still trust newspapers, like the Washington Post. Great. All right, next question. In the past month, how many times have you read a print newspaper? W for I haven't, 1 to 5 times, 5 to 15 times, and more than 25 times. In the past month, how many times have you read a print newspaper?
For our next question, which source of news do you most trust? Social media, blogs, traditional media, print or broadcast, or word of mouth? No love for blogs today.
All right. Would you be willing to pay an extra fee for access to online content from your favorite newspaper? Yes, no, or I prefer physical newspaper. So it looks like most of us are not fans of paywalls.
Right, and finally, how important is accuracy and reputation of a news information site? Very important, somewhat important. It will be all straightened out eventually. Not that important if the story is interesting, or not something I think about. It seems pretty clear accuracy is still very important. We really appreciate your responses to our poll. And now Allison Gayer and Connor Shear.
Good evening. My name is Connor Shear, and I'm a senior in political science, international relations from Mishawaka, Indiana.
And I'm Allison Gayer, a senior in political science and professional writing from Indianapolis. We're excited you're here for the first of PICC's Communication Innovators Lecture Series.
Tonight, we are joined by a Purdue alumni who supplemented his studies here with a variety of disciplines, from communication to computer science. All of that helped to equip him with the necessary skills to innovate his way to success in Washington, and incidentally put him in the forefront of the new ways to deliver news.
He majored in professional writing and creative writing with minors in communication and computer science. He also worked at the Exponent, Purdue's independent student newspaper.
Joey graduated in 2007 and then worked for the Indianapolis Star, editing, coding, and building special digital projects. He also worked with US Today to develop the first edition of the paper's iPad news app.
He also designed the iPad app for the Washington Post and went on to be their mobile design director. And this past August, he was promoted to the director of digital products and design at the Washington Post.
Interviewing our guests after his opening remarks today will be two Purdue students, Chris Doty and Kristen Gibson. Chris is from Brownsburg, Indiana, studying political science, and he will be graduating in December with the goal to write policy in DC.
And Kristen Gibson is from Lafayette, Indiana, and Wilmington, Delaware. She's studying Spanish and linguistics and works at the Exponent.
Please give us a warm welcome and welcoming Joey back.
Hey, hey everybody. I really don't know what to talk about now. I guess they kind of told you everything about me. My name is Joey Marburger. I live in Washington, D.C. I work for the Washington Post. And what I do is I basically try to find new ways for journalism to make money, more or less. So I build a lot of products that are not our traditional print publication, even our website. I build new mobile apps. I find new ways to kind of squeeze life out of our content, create new content, do content strategy. I work with all of our executives to kind of find out what the next big thing is. It's a pretty cool job, kind of a dream job. But basically I wake up every morning and I try to figure out what we should be doing to attract new users, new readers. And it's not easy, but luckily my experience at Purdue, especially the Exponent, really prepared me for a dynamic, changing news landscape, which I'm really excited to share with you guys today. I hope you have some awesome questions afterwards. But I guess we're going to do like a Q&A now, and we'll see if my time in the circus comes up.
Hi there, everybody. My name's Christopher Doty. I want to first just remind you, our Twitter handle is at Purdue ICC. You're welcome to tweet your questions at any point in time. Our Twitter followers, or our Twitter handlers will relay your questions to us, and we can get your questions answered by Joey. We also have a mic down here in the front. If any of you have a question, you're more than welcome to come to the front, or raise your hand, and we do have one roving mic that can come take your questions.
So we're going to start?
Yeah.
Okay. So just to start off, where did you find your love for news or journalism? Like, did your parents read the newspaper when you were a kid, or?
Yeah, they did read the newspaper, but really, I was just always interested in what was going on in the world. I was very curious in a lot of different ways. My kind of passion for news didn't really start until I came to Purdue, but I did work for my high school newspaper and found that really interesting. But I'll just always remember my grandfather was kind of not as keen on going to school. Would always tell my dad and my aunts and uncles that you didn't need to go to school, you just needed to read the Wall Street Journal. And that's what he did. My dad was the first and only of the children to go to college, and he went to Purdue. And my dad still reads the Wall Street Journal about every day, now more so online. But I kind of grew up in more of a household that respected information and current events. Conversation about politics and business were very common at kind of the dinner table. So I just kind of grew up in that environment where you needed to know how to talk about current events and news. And when I got to Purdue, I had no idea that I would be where I am today, obviously. But I just found that it was really interesting the way news came together. And that's what got me interested in going to a call out for the Exponent, thinking it'd be cool to like have a couple bylines or something and that I could show to my buddies and my parents. But before I knew it, I was writing a lot, and I kind of caught the journalism bug, and then I really got involved with the Exponent, and here I am today.
That's great. Can you tell me a little bit about why you came to Purdue? Because Purdue isn't known for journalism. Purdue isn't really known for the humanities necessarily. My dad went to Purdue, my mom went to Purdue, and I have an older brother and older sister, and they went to IU. And when it came time for me to go to school, my dad simply said, "You'll make the right decision," which was funny. Is I didn't know I would do journalism, or I guess I would have gone to IU. But I came to Purdue to study computer science, and when I got here and I kind of saw the vast landscape of opportunities, I just took advantage of them. And I ended up moving out of computer science, and I basically took classes and majors and minors that I thought really were like my version of journalism. They were kind of digital journalism because I was interested in the news. I was interested in design. I was interested in new technologies. And all of those really started to come together as I was kind of wrapping up my time here. And that just lended itself well to being the online editor at the Indy Star because it was kind of all of my interests and my passions. But, you know, I think that tech is such an important part of journalism today. And I feel like some of your traditional journalism schools out there are just now really catching on to it, which seems really scary. But even Columbia and Northwestern, Missouri, you know, traditional J schools are so journalism heavy, which is very important and needed. But Purdue has always been tech heavy and had a great communication school. So it was almost like Purdue was really set up for this kind of digital communication revolution, which I really realized more in the latter part of my junior year. So I was like, I kind of stumbled into being a digital journalist and then just kind of went from there. But I mean, I knew that if I came to Purdue to study computer science and I didn't want to do it, that I had other opportunities. I wasn't like, you know, pigeonholed into only doing CS. Like I could possibly do engineering or just English and writing. And I ended up doing a little bit of everything, which was pretty cool. Because I don't know if I would have got the same experience at IU, even though I probably would have never gone there, right? But I did look at a lot of other schools around the country. I almost went to Georgia Tech. I didn't want to live in Atlanta, though, no offense to Atlanta. But I kind of was like, Georgia Tech and Purdue kind of had similar aspects to them, and Purdue just being right here and being lucky enough to be an in-state student, I just, you know, knew Purdue was the right choice.
So you sampled a lot of classes from a lot of different areas while you were here. Can you go into a little bit of what were some of your favorite classes? What did you enjoy the most? And especially, what do you think probably helped you get to where you are now?
Actually, one of my favorite classes, which I think I remember the number, it was computer science classes, CS, I think 192, which basically every new computer science student has to take, which is a giant lecture, and then you would break into like small groups. And all it was focused on was basically how to be a computer scientist. It wasn't like learning how to code, it was like learning basic logic or what it takes to make it in a computer science industry, some of the business aspects, things like that. And I mean, taking that one class, surprisingly, I think has set me up to be able to learn more about technology. Because I really approached it from the perspective of you're taking programming languages as, you know, in other classes. Like I was taking like CS 180, which is Java, but their perspective was like, we don't know what the next big coding language is going to be, so we're going to teach you how to think like a programmer, think like a computer scientist. And so today, now, it doesn't take me very long to pick up on new programming languages, new technologies. It wasn't a pure like logic class, but I look back on that, and that was the class that surprisingly kind of convinced me not to be a computer scientist, which is, you know, maybe bad. But it convinced me kind of how I wanted to apply computer science, which is really the way I look at it today with journalism, is finding kind of new innovative ways to deliver information.
What was a class you wish you could have taken but didn't take?
I wish I could have taken history of rock and roll. I couldn't fit it into my schedule. Maybe wine tasting, I heard that's a fun one. One class I really did want to take was astronomy, and I couldn't take it because it was like a lab that was really late at night, obviously.
Yeah, I'm in there right now, 8:30.
Yeah, and I was like usually at the exponent late, so it would have been hard to balance. Also, I don't know if I wanted to like, you know, be in a class until really late. But I was interested in all sorts of stuff. I wish I could have taken a couple more like physics classes, which seems maybe odd, but now something we were talking about earlier with using the accelerometer in your devices to kind of determine how you're reading an article. Like that's a lot of physics in that I've like really been doing a lot of Googling around and trying to figure out like how do you know for sure if someone's like running with their phone or in a lean back experience, and being able to kind of do the mathematics behind it to figure out like can we change the way an article's presented. I mean, I probably would have not done super well in the class, I mean, because not being like a physics major, but those were the types of classes I looked at almost as electives, and my advisor thought I was crazy. She's like, no one takes that as an elective. You know, like I took chemistry, both years of chemistry, which I think were like 115, 116, when I only had to take one, but I took the other one anyway. And I just always found it interesting. I wasn't really taking classes to totally fit into my curriculum or taking them thinking they were an easy A. I usually took things that I was just generally interested in. Sometimes I was a bad thing is I was interested in it at the moment, and then I'd get into the class and be like, maybe I'm not that interested in it. But you know, I still would take it anyways and learned a lot, because that's actually just kind of the reason I got into journalism in the first place, is I was just curious about lots of different things. And that's what I love about being a reporter, is you get to be, you know, an expert in a lot of things for like 5 minutes, and that's pretty cool.
All right, well, I think we have a question from Twitter.
Ooh.
Okay, I'm just gonna crouch. So this is from one of our audience members. Joey, what is the most difficult thing you've had to cover in your career, and did it make you question your career path at all?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, first I have to say that I don't really cover a lot of stuff anymore for the Post. I had one of my first articles published in the Post about 2 weeks ago that was kind of an overview of healthcare.gov and all of its problems. And that was more of coming at it from a design development perspective. But one of the most difficult stories, which we actually talked about this morning or at lunch, was when I was at Purdue, and it was covering the disappearance of Wade Steffi. It was a student here who passed away, and that was really, really hard. And I was still a student, and I had to interview a lot of people that were sad, and it was tough to build relationships with people and not lose composure. And I also had to do a lot of stories about student deaths, and you know, it takes its toll on you. I'm glad that I kind of did that early, because honestly, it's gonna happen. They can't really necessarily teach you compassion in the classroom. It's something you kind of have to experience and live. And I think that, you know, I think journalists do put up a little bit of a shield with how they cover things, but I think that really prepared me for the real world when it was like my first week at the Indianapolis Star, and I was the night editor, and we had a like quadruple homicide that came in, and I had to do a lot of preliminary phone calls, and you have people that take their anger out on you because of the situation they're in, and I think that being able to react to that and know that, you know, they're not really mad at you and what to say was not something that, you know, I would say made me regret my career path. I think that just helped me move forward, because that's an experience I think a lot of people don't get, and it's the real world, and it was a great preparation that you can't get out of a textbook.
So going off that, what, you know, Exponent alumni always talk about, I learned this in the newsroom that I would never learn in the classroom. What's something that you took away from your experience at the Exponent that you still use today?
It's interesting. I think independence of that, you can't blame people. Like, I mean, you can't, you know, single people out. I mean, if you're working on whether it's a story or a new product or a whole digital strategy, and it's your work, it's almost like, you know, like being a golfer. Like, you can't like blame things on a team. I mean, sometimes it's, you know, things are very much a team effort. But I really learned that you had to kind of have your independence, but you did have people that could help you. But at the end of the day, if you got a fact wrong in an article, it's your fault. and maybe you got bad information, but as a journalist, it's like the two biggest things I think are most important is, be first, be accurate, and I would prefer to be accurate. I think that's what I really learned is that, it's a competitive world, but you can't sit back and say like, someone else will do it. You have to go out and kind of do it yourself. You can't be shy. You can't just phone it in and call people for a quote. You have to like hunt down professors and sit outside of their office because they're blowing you off for an interview, and track people down on campus and find out where people are going to be and really work for it. And that's a big part of it. I mean, a lot of people, especially in Washington, D.C., do not want to be interviewed. They don't want to tell you what they think, what they're, why they did this, why they did that, and so you have to work for it. And I think that's really what working at the Exponent instilled in me was that it's going to be hard work, and you've got to be ready for it because it's never gonna stop. It's not going to get easier. It'll get harder, if anything. And I think that, you can't necessarily learn that in the classroom. I think that subjects can get harder, but you've got to motivate yourself to get up and do what you want to do, and that was a big part of my time at the Exponent.
So while you were in the Exponent, did you know what your career path was going to be at that point, or was it something that you worked out over time?
Definitely something I worked out over time. I kind of knew roughly what I wanted to do. Initially, I was like, I really want to just be a reporter. On what, I don't know. I figured I would start at a small newspaper and just write and work my way up. But then kind of the latter part of my junior year and senior year, the media landscape was already changing like rapidly, and technology was having a profound effect on how even the Exponent produces news. And I kind of saw that as an opportunity from some of the background I had, and I was like, well, maybe I can mix the two together a little bit. And when I took an internship at the Northwest Indiana Times, what I was doing was essentially online editing and helping them build new digital products that extended their website or working on their website that helped them present the news or tell the news. And when I came back from that, I was like, I think that's a better opportunity than simply being a reporter, because I think I still need all the skills that come with being a reporter, but I just kind of fell into it over time. It was like a perfect opportunity that opened up at the Star, and it was like a good utilization of all of my skills. And after I had like about a year or so into that job, and the kind of the floor had fallen out of from below the economy and media especially, and we had to get more nimble and figure out innovative ways to make money, to get the news out there, and I was pretty good at it. And I just knew that that's probably what I was going to do somewhat for the rest of my life.
When did you start with app development?
It's a kind of a funny story. Is when apps really came out, I was at the Indy Star, and I was transitioning more from doing online editing to doing newsroom kind of special projects or new digital products, basically. And one of our senior developers came to me and basically was like, hey, we should build a news app, an app that you can read the Indy Star on or whatever, and it's really hard to build them, but it's written in this coding language called Objective-C. And he's like, and I know how to write that. And I remember you talking about computer science and being involved. I was like, yeah, I know how to write Objective-C too. He's like, let's build an app. I was like, okay. So we just built an app. And then Gannett, who owns the Indianapolis Star, kind of reached out and was like, wait a minute, how do you guys build an app? We're building an app, and we have spent lots of money on it and hired so many people, and it was like you and that other guy. And I was like, yeah. So then long story short, I ended up working at Gannett Corporate, overseeing app development for all of Gannett Corporate. So it was interesting the minute I saw apps, like that idea, it just the light bulb went off, and I just knew that was going to be huge, and news needed to get in the space as fast as possible. And I looked at myself. I'm like, how do I use my phone? How do I use apps? I'm like, probably a lot of people are doing the same thing. News has always been slow, or media companies have always been slow to adapt to new technologies. And I basically was like, let's not make the same mistake again and again. So we just jumped right into it. And we built 3 apps right away. We built 2 sports apps and our main news app. And then I went to work for Gannett for a little while and helped with their iPad app, which is one of the first iPad apps ever, and a little bit of their iPhone app and mobile strategy. And then the Washington Post gave me a call, and I went there to do that for them.
That's great.
We have a question here in the audience.
Oh, we do?
Cool.
Great.
Actually, for me.
Awesome.
So, so we learned a few things during the poll that was taken by our students, our polling unit. And one of them is that we have an audience that seems to really value traditional news sources like the Washington Post, but they don't want to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
So this must be the source of great frustration and an engine of creativity for what you do. You have a new owner at the Post. Tell us what is going on right now and where you find your energies getting directed, and is the direction coming down from the new owner on what to pursue to make this a viable news operation for the future?
That's a great question. It's we haven't gotten a ton of directive yet. I think that Jeff Bezos is very interested in tablet experience overall. That's one area we're re-exploring that we're going to try to do something different in. The paywall or meter model, subscription, whatever you want to call it, we were talking about earlier as well, is that we're not necessarily in that to like offset declining print advertising and subscriptions. We're in it more to find out exactly who our readers are and what data we can mine from those users, because it's more about who is using our products rather than what they're paying for them. Because if you can target users a lot more directly, there's more money in that than platform advertising. Because then you can get into singular specialized ad units or products in general, like whole custom products that the user is willing to pay for, or it's so good that they're like, they're going to just use it all the time, which is also good. I think that Bezos is, he said when he came to speak at the Post that, he put it out there saying that basically we spend a lot of money on investigative journalism. Millions of dollars, a monopoly amount of money in the journalism world on journalism. And someone else, Huffington Post, for example, will take it and dilute it down to 3 or 4 paragraphs, put it up for free, and in an attention, poor economy, people will just read those 4 paragraphs rather than getting the whole story, because that'll give them enough information to feel informed or say something at a happy hour or share it or whatever. But usually that's not the whole deal. So he's really interested in how we create kind of this new bundle, which is like a print edition, plops down on your front door, is a bundle of content. It's multiple sections. There's maybe a magazine in it. There's kind of other singular print products, but it's a bundle of content. It's all sorts of stuff, and it's our best work that we can do that day. But that doesn't really exist in the digital world. There isn't really a digital bundle of information. The entire internet is the bundle. So we have to figure out what is our new world bundle inside that space. And our paywall subscription model is helping us figure out who our audience is for that bundle and what they want, based on what they look at, when they're looking at it, how they're looking at it, what apps we should build or not build, what platforms we should target, and all of those kind of critical decisions. Some are experiments. We might have to fail on a few things to learn. But I know that Bezos buying the Washington Post is a huge deal for what I do, actually, specifically, and what my team does, is that he wants to try things. And it's an experimental exciting time in journalism. It's an amazing feeling to just be able to say, let's build something today that we think people will love. And we have a very strong brand, and we have the backing to do it. And usually everything we do that's successful, the New York Times builds, and vice versa. So it's an open market. But we might have to do something really drastic to push the needle, because I think the needle's just kind of teetering. And I think that a couple of the things that will be coming out within the next year will do that. And Bezos is notoriously, maybe, a long-term guy. Like, he's losing a lot of money at Amazon, but he is taking over all retail. So that's why the market share stays high. So I think that we're going to be following the same strategy. We're in it for the long haul.
We should probably tell everybody here that all of this investment, all of that the Washington Post has been doing and putting in, it's free to everybody who has an EDU address.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you create a Washington Post account on our website, if you sign in with a .edu email address, even if it's not your main email address, then you get access for free. It's also .mil and .gov is free.
Well, thank you, Joey. Follow on to that question. So, do you foresee a day when targeted, customized advertising can cover the cost of the Post reporting entirely, such that you guys don't have to charge for any product?
Yes, I think so. It depends. We have, the way we're building a lot of products now, we run with singular sponsorships that can at least cover that product, and at least hope for more than just covering the development of that product. That model has been pretty successful for us, because what we'll do is build a whole new product that we know is has pieces to it that we can reuse elsewhere. As the saying around the newsroom is no one-offs. We do build everything to scale. Everything's reusable, because if we get enough money from that product and it produces something we can use for another product, then we can build that product more cheaply, and that just kind of keeps going to where now we can take products that took a lot of time and money to develop and just repackage them with very little effort and make the same amount of money. We do that enough, then that kind of helps offset a lot of the costs that we incur elsewhere. Paper's not cheap, ink's not cheap, and good journalism is very, very expensive. But like I said, is with the subscription model, is the money that people pay for digital subscriptions is kind of a bonus. It's that they sign up and that they share information with us in the long term is a much more lucrative area. So I think that it's going to take time to accrue a lot of that, and have more data, a better understanding of exactly who's using our website before we can really maybe pull back the paywall. Well, probably, I don't know if we'll pull it back ever, but it's like I tell people, people call it a paywall, but it's really more of a pay fence. If we wanted to keep you out, we could, but we don't want to. We want you to check in as you come to visit, basically. And I think that'll help us, but it's going to take time to really figure out, because we have millions and millions of data points flowing into our website every minute, and sifting through that takes time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I don't think the collection of data will ever stop.
Right.
It's just a flow. But we talked about it earlier. Do you ever feel any moral qualms with what you're kind of taking from people without them even knowing, or do you think that landscape should change at all, or?
Yeah, I think that especially with even Facebook privacy settings is really kind of blowing the lid off privacy. I think that there will be some changes. Even within iOS, what they can access is becoming a little bit more walled, where they ask to access your photos and your location and your contacts and all of that. And that's just, I think, a steady progression. But there are lots of things they don't ask you for permission for, even in a web environment, a non-native app environment, where we can, like I was saying earlier, we can figure out how you're holding your device, how fast you're moving your device without asking you anything. We currently don't do that on the Washington Post website, But we are looking into things like that because it's a really interesting amount of data. Anyone that has a smartphone, you're sending data to Google right now and you don't know it probably, because that's actually how Google Maps works. When you see traffic jams, when it's not just some magical algorithm, they're actually pinging data from antennas that it's totally anonymous and whatnot, but they know that it's coming from a device that's active that is pinging a cell network, and they look at all of those in a line, and if they know that there's 20 or so mobile phones on I-65 and they all start kind of pinging and moving closer together, that there might be a traffic jam and it turns red on the map. That's how it works. You don't even know that you were probably sending all that data, and that's like one sliver of it. I mean, obviously the NSA stuff coming out is kind of a shock to people. Wasn't that big of a shock to me. I just assumed they were, spying on everybody. Maybe that's, I'm like callous by, I guess, spying on people myself. There's a lot of data that you get that just makes sense too. Like I read article A and then I move to article B and article C, and then maybe I come back to B, but I only share article A. Those kind of logic problems are how we figure out maybe what to recommend to you. When you come into our mobile site, we download sections offline so that you can read it when you go into a tunnel on the subway, and we gear that toward individual users, where if you come in and we know that by kind of storing a cookie on your device that you always go to the sports section, then we'll make sure the sports section is kind of pre-downloaded for you. And so you can consume content a lot faster, and you'll come back for that because it was easy and convenient. And that's all data that we collect. I mean, we don't know that it's tied to a particular person until you sign up for a subscription. And then we tend to know that, like, exactly kind of what your use patterns are. And there's a real science to that. I think it's kind of exciting because it's like solving a mystery all the time. And that helps us in a lot of ways build products that you actually want and you may not know it. Because we know probably how you use our website better than you do, which may be scary, maybe kind of weird, but we're actually in it to make the best experience possible for people, and by collecting data, that's how we do it. If we're ever going to collect a mass amount of data, like we ask you, we tell you what we're going to do with it. On our terms of service and our privacy policy on our website, we tell you everything that we use your data for. And you can tell us, like, we can tell you how to, like, turn things off in your browser so that you don't share data if you're, a conspiracy theorist kind of person. But for the most part, everyone's kind of picking up on your data, and it's really hard to kind of pin down. But for the most part, it's not being used maliciously. So if you want to, have a better experience, sometimes you gotta, give up a little bit of privacy.
All right, Julia, I think we have another question from Twitter.
Yep. PICC advisor Glenn Sparks wants to know, does social media doom us to inaccurate breaking stories because accuracy is sacrificed to the quest to beat the competition?
Absolutely. I think Twitter is great for maybe finding out something's going on. But if you want, accurate reporting is, I think, a lot. You have to go to trusted sources. Even there are people on Twitter that don't work for a media company and just independently tweet out breaking news. But all they're doing is sitting there reading AP, and if they think that it's, accurate, they'll tweet it. And it's like I was saying earlier, I think the two biggest things in journalism are be first, be accurate. And, we aren't trying to beat CNN to the latest correction, or the New York Times. I mean, the New York Times actually will be slow and cautious too. And Twitter is, it's a constant stream of information, but a lot of times it's false. If you start to see, again, data, if you see data patterns of like peaks of information, like we knew there was a new pope probably before anyone else, just by looking at the number of tweets that were coming into our social platform we have called The Grid, which actually consumes all social networks and shows us kind of peaks and valleys of what's trending. We have our own trending algorithms that we write against. So I think that, Twitter And well, that's why Twitter is hiring a head of media, an actual trying to set up a true media company. Even though they call themselves a media company, they're not journalists, because there's a big distinction between that. And I think that maybe playing journalist is fun for people on Twitter sometimes, but when lives hang in the balance, it's not maybe the most accurate source.
I'm curious about where you think blogs are going to. I mean, the Washington Post has one of the most popular blogs with Ezra Klein's blog. And I'm curious, do you think that it's similar to Twitter in that it doesn't necessarily have the hard-hitting impact that the average journalism does at the Washington Post?
Right. What's interesting is that users don't think of blogs the way we think of blogs. Blogs were kind of this excuse to be like online columns with accuracy. And I think, well, not even that, but our blogs are their whole products. I mean, we're trying to actually erase the term blogs from our newsroom. We use WordPress, which is a very common blogging platform. When we're setting up a new WordPress product, we don't call it a blog, we call it a WordPress instance, because it's going to run on WordPress, but it's probably not going to be a blog. I mean, a blog is much more, is a content strategy, but what Ezra's done with the Wonk blog is it's its own like paper almost. I mean, it's accurate, but there's shorter posts, sometimes longer. They kind of cherry pick from within the post, outside the post. They break down policy really well. But Wonk blog could almost just exist on its own. It has the name blog in it, whatever. But like another one of our most popular blogs is essentially our politics section front, which we think of these things as section fronts, but users don't think of it that way either. They're just looking for political information. Some things are very much branded as a blog, though, but we don't say like there's a true distinction between the two, because we leave it up to the user almost to decide for themselves, or the reader. If something's very opinionated and column-like, then they may perceive it as a blog. But we're not going to put blog on everything, even though our hierarchy kind of still says blogs. You'll notice if you watch the Washington Post, especially over the next like 6 months, all of that will slowly be erased, where really it's one cohesive news source, and it's up to you if you want to keep using the kind of old term of blog. But it's what people write that really makes it what it is.
Is that like you were saying that there's no online version of a news bundle? But just when you were talking about blogs, are you thinking of how it works with every other product that you have? I mean, although Wonkblog could exist on its own, you don't want it to.
Right. Well, I think that really, really successful products breed other products. And Wonkblog is another example, is that it has created a new product called No More, which is kind of we call it like more of an ADD version of the internet. It's like Reddit, but it's that same kind of Wonkblog style of breaking down policy and kind of what's interesting, and doing it in simple photos and charts and graphs. And that has become very, very popular on our website almost immediately. It was developed by another Purdue grad named Yuri Victor, who's our director of user experience. And what we find is that we are actually trying to create a bundle on that platform and that product by going out and figuring out what we like and then putting it together and presenting it more as a you decide what you want to look at, and it's no more or no more, KNOW more or NO more. And if you do KNOW more, we give you more information about it. If you do no and no more, it just removes the article. As you do that over time, it's building your own news source, basically. I think that people create their own bundles, but people also don't like to do a lot of work, especially when you ask them to. So I think that like what we're seeing in that product, which is very much a beta kind of product, is I think we've kind of hit a little bit of a nerve with people of like what they want out of a bundle. So we could start applying No More to other kind of topics and content areas, like No More just about sports, or No More just about technology, and not so much just business or politics. And that's really, really exciting to try. I don't think that I don't think we're going to come up with some nice bundle with a bow on it that we hand to people and are like, this is the bundle. You know, they're going to be like, well, that's not my bundle. You know, so everybody gets a bundle, kind of a thing. And I think we're trying to figure out how do we do that, because that's a lot of kind of algorithmic work that we're trying to also bring custom curation and editing to, because people still come to us because it's the Washington Post and because they respect our reporters and editors and our information. And so we don't want to just become a rehash of something else. We have to respect that and show that, yes, we're editing this, but we're editing what you want and what we think you should know. And if you can balance that really, really well, then I think people will always come back for that.
That's great.
All right, I think we have another question from Twitter.
Ooh.
Yep. A member of the audience asks, does a Purdue degree hold weight in the media, or did you feel like you had to prove yourself in a field Purdue isn't known for?
That's a great question. I tell people I went to Purdue, almost everyone's like, oh yeah, like you're terrible at football right now. No, usually after that, then it's, people know Purdue. I mean, especially out on the East Coast, in a very kind of Ivy League area. I mean, like a lot of people I work with went to Harvard and Yale and Princeton. A lot of Maryland grads too. But Purdue is, I think, known for a lot of stuff. I think people just know that it's a good school, that, you know, it's known for engineering, known for astronauts and things like that. But I did kind of have to cut my teeth, especially in the kind of snooty journalism areas of Washington, D.C., like going to the D.C. Press Club and being like, you know, I didn't go to Northwestern. It's like, oh, well, that's nice, you know. but what I do and explain to people what I do and how like Purdue has really helped with that, it makes perfect sense. Northwestern's scrambling to get to like a level of tech, you know, prowess that Purdue has. So is Columbia. They're all behind, and Purdue is like poised right now to really take advantage of the intersection of communication and technology. I mean, you're just literally sitting on top of it. And I think that, you know, when I talk to people about that, it clicks. That, you know, you don't have to have a degree from a traditional journalism school to just be a journalist.
I'm kind of curious, to go off of that a little bit, where is the future of journalism in regards to technology? What is the next thing?
Wow, that's a good one. That's not really a softball question. I think everyone's becoming a journalist. I think that it's just, you know, it's easy to start up a blog and be perceived as legit and accurate, even from just reading Twitter and then going and maybe doing a little research of your own and posting it on a blog. You can be a media company. I mean, you can embed Google ads on it or whatever, and you can start making money. I mean, look at Drudge Report is a perfect example. And now it's huge. I mean, when a Washington Post article is published on Drudge, our metrics go like this. I mean, it's like a hockey stick effect. I think that journalism is kind of in this, it's almost like it's in this big expansion, like kind of like the universe, and it's starting to kind of suck back in a little as people are like, you know, okay, some people aren't as accurate, some people aren't as trustworthy. So people are starting to steer more towards credible, branded content. I think, you know, what's interesting is local newspapers, media companies are doing pretty well actually still, and it's the big national papers are actually doing pretty well. It's the ones that are kind of in between that are getting hit the hardest because they're not sure where they're going. They're not sure if they should be the hometown paper or they should be like the big city paper. And you know, the Washington Post is in a very, very kind of difficult position. Is that, do we be the Washington Post or do we be the Washington Post? Like, it's like, are we outside the Beltway, inside the Beltway? Or are we both? And we try to do both as best we can. The New York Times has the same problem, but luckily for them is, you know, New York is like this little microcosm of the world, but DC is also like a very powerful place in the world. So I think that, you know, as journalism evolves, reporters themselves are becoming brands. I mean, like, look at Jake Tapper. I mean, he can go anywhere, and he's still Jake Tapper. I mean, even Ezra Klein. I mean, people come for Ezra Klein, then the Post, pretty much. I mean, he has a very dedicated following. So I think we'll see more of that, more niche kind of information verticals, and very almost like the trade publications out there within bigger publications. And I think that as more trained tech journalists come onto the scene, which is taking a very long time, and it's hard. I mean, it's hard to hire people that have that great mindset. As that starts to happen, I think that I don't really know exactly where we'll go, but I think that it'll be really exciting.
I think we have another question. Go ahead.
All right, so it looks like we're coming to the end of our time, and I think everyone wants to hear a story about the circus.
Okay, so I grew up in Peru, Indiana, which is kind of about an hour northeast of here. When you were a kid, about 7 years old, and you were a boy, if you were bad at baseball, you went to the circus, which sounds crazy. But Peru is actually the hometown circus capital of the world of the amateur circus. So less lions and bears, more like acrobat and stuff. So I was in the circus, and my sister was in the circus, and my brother was good at baseball. So he wasn't in the circus. But I did the flying trapeze and tumbling and trampoline and all that stuff. I can't do a lick of it now without probably pulling some muscle. But I did that for about 5 years, and it was really exciting. There's some pictures floating around somewhere, I'm sure, of me in sequins, which I mean, I didn't want to dig up for a lot of reasons. But yeah, no, the Peru Circus, look it up. It's very awesome. Kathy Day, who actually visited Purdue when I was here, she's a great author. She wrote a book called Circus in Winter, which is kind of a fictional telling of the circus in Peru and how it's like really a part of the community. Because Peru is near the wintering grounds of the Barnum Bailey Circus, where they would winter their animals and barns and everything, and they ended up kind of developing an amateur circus there, where some people actually like go to Russia and make a career out of it. So it's like the real deal. It's not just like for fun. Well, I mean it is, but it's pretty coll. It's a story that's been coming up a lot recently in my life, as I think too many people have tweeted about it. But I was in the circus. It was interesting.
I want to ask you, Joey. I assume you have plans to stay at the Washington Post for a considerable period of time.
Yeah.
But I want to know, what other ambitions do you have? I mean, what does the future hold for Joey Marburger?
Oh God. That makes it sound really important. I don't know. I think that I will stay at the Post for a while. I like what we're doing there, and I like where the Post is heading. We have clear strategy. We have a pretty awesome new owner. We have a great executive team. My team is awesome that I get to work with every day. But I think that eventually I may kind of fall back into my true journalism roots and maybe go off, write a book, maybe take time off and do like a little bit more reporting in a certain area. I'm not sure, but maybe Bezos will invite me to go fly in a rocket somewhere, because he also is invested in that. But I'm always curious about a lot of things, and I haven't found anything that I'm more curious about than solving the problems of the media industry at the moment. But I think that if this all falls apart, that I think I'd maybe start a brewery. Yeah.
Joey, would you consider co-teaching a class on journalism and technology here at Purdue?
Absolutely. I would love to.
There we go.
I have taught a couple independent classes at Northwestern and Maryland and George Washington, but I haven't done a full program, but I would love to.
Cool. Wrap this up.
Good
Good evening, everyone. I'm Frank Speak. I'm a junior double majoring in political science and history from Westfield, Indiana. Let's give Joey a round of applause. A true leader and trailblazer in his field, Joey's a great example for all of us wanting to succeed. Tonight we have learned that one path to success is challenging the norm and choosing to not echo conventional wisdom, but instead putting individuality to work and creating your own career. This concludes the Communication Innovation Forum for the Purdue Institute for Civic Communication. But the opportunities are just beginning. Keeping a lookout for future PICC events in the following weeks, PICC is pleased to announce a spring break program with the renowned presidential historian Richard Norton Smith. Traveling throughout the Midwest, the program offers students firsthand educational experience about the lives of U.S. presidents throughout Indiana and the Heartland, from Lincoln to Reagan. Instead of working on a tan during spring break, you can work towards your degree. PICC is also happy to announce a popular Washington Maymester program hosted with C-SPAN. This opportunity takes students from the White House, Capitol Hill, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other sites of influence and power in the nation's capital. Information about applying for these classes is in your program. If you have any questions, you can contact PICC at picc@purdue.edu. Thanks again for everyone for coming, and have a great rest of your evening.
Students who worked on tonight's program and come up to the stage for our picture with our guests. Thank you all for coming.